BMX owes you. But I don't mean it how you think I probably do. I don't mean it in the basic sense that, BMX owes you product. BMX owes you sponsorships. BMX owes you popularity. That ain't the shit that I'm talking about. I'm talking about something different. Let's get into it.
All right, you fools. You brought it on yourselves.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Yeah, dude, sick!
Yeah, dude, sick podcast. Bitches.
Hell yeah! Episode 1. This episode's called The Local Pro, and we're going to get to that, but I got a couple things I want to talk about. We're going to take some calls, and it's going to be dope. But first off, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for waiting. This thing wasn't exactly how I planned. I wanted to do a radio show, a live show, but hey man, that shit's fucking difficult, so I'm trying this out. We'll see how it goes. I have a lot of different ideas for upcoming episodes. I think my goal is to make every episode completely different, to where the structure's different. I don't want you to expect this thing to be the same every episode. I think, you know what? Expect the unexpected. And that's pretty much going to be the basis of this show. I'm excited. We got a good topic today. But before we start, I want to talk about the shit that BMX owes you. And like I said in the intro, it doesn't owe you all that bullshit, man. You shouldn't even be looking for that shit. If you're in BMX, just ride and have fun. This thing ain't nothing but a hobby, man. But you know what? If you put a decade, if you put 20 years, 30 years, shit, you could put 50 years if you're Brett Downs or Scott Town. If you put that much time into something, don't you think it owes you just a little bit? I think what BMX owes you, is the right to criticize. And that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. The right to criticize. If you're putting that amount of time, look, BMX is a big part of our lives. It's huge. So why not be able to speak your mind on matters? Why not be able to share your opinions? If you're one of those people who's holding back, then you're fucking wasting time, man. Let that shit out. Let's talk about it. Because that's the only way we'll be able to grow. BMX changes all the time, and a lot of people may not agree with the direction it goes, but as a matter of fact, speaking of that, most of the time I came up in BMX, late 90s, early mid-2000s, that was a very, it was just a weird time for BMX, girls' pants. And, I think we got a lot of hate from some older dudes, just like some older dudes these days are hating current BMX. But what I did, man, I embraced that hate. I did a little research. I looked into every era of BMX. I looked into 70s, 80s. I looked at all that shit, and I said, hey, what makes your era so much better than this one? And I did find a lot of things. I was like, damn, this is legit. There was some good shit that happened over those years for sure. But there's also some whack shit too. Maybe they weren't wearing girls' pants, but hey, they were wearing full fucking leathers to go ride down the street to their friend's, driveway quarter pipe made completely out of fucking 2x4s. They're wearing full leathers and a fucking dirt mask. Come on now. You gotta think about everything before you talk some shit. And that's what I try to do best. I try to cover my bases. I was told once, don't check somebody until you check yourself first. And I think about that all the time. If you're going to check someone, make sure your shit's tight. Because, the older people get, the more they don't hold back. They're going to let some shit loose too. So, anyways, I just want to say that real quick. Embrace it. if there's an older guy who's salty, try to figure out the reasons why they are salty. Don't just write them off as a salty old dude. Think about it. But anyways, back to what BMX owes you. The right to criticize. Yeah, why can't you speak on something that you think is whack? If we just let all this whack shit happen, then the shit's just gonna get worse and worse because it becomes the new normal. I know that's a key term these days, the new normal. But speak up on shit. There's nothing wrong with a healthy debate. Matter of fact, I look for debates. I look for arguments. Because I love that shit. And another thing that BMX owes you is camaraderie. The BMX brotherhood. BMX owes you that. And when I say BMX, I mean all of us. We owe that to each other. And you know what? I will say I think we're doing a pretty good job with that. Think about any major city in the US. You could probably find someone who at least knows somebody with a place you could probably stay. And that's pretty big, man. You could go to fucking shit. You could go to Florida. You could go to Florida and stay on someone's floor. I fucking guarantee it. And if you can't, maybe you're not doing this thing right. Maybe you need to branch out a little bit more. I make it a point that when I go to a skate park, I say hi to other riders. You shake some hands. You say what's up. You network. You get their number, whatever. That's the only way you're gonna ever excel and build build friendships, strengthen relationships, all that shit, is if you branch out, So I think BMX is doing a pretty good job in that. But there's one thing I got to talk about that I've been thinking about for a while. It's a story I heard. A friend of mine went to a major BMX contest. I'm not gonna say which one, but this guy, this friend of mine, he's a BMX competitor, and that's a big part of why he rides. He likes competition, and I fucking love that, man. I love competitiveness in BMX. If that's what you're into, then that's what you're into. I dig it. I don't do that personally, but I'll fucking watch you. Hell yeah. I'll watch you. I'll watch you do your thing. I'll watch you. I'll watch you rise up. But anyways, he went to a contest that wasn't really, it wasn't one of those types of contests. It was more like a, style and flow type thing, which is cool too. I love that shit too. But this guy showed up there, which I think as a BMX rider, you should be able to show up to a contest regardless of your style of riding, and you should be able to fit in because that's that camaraderie I'm talking about. That's that brotherhood. So this guy showed up at this contest and he received a lot of hate, a lot of people talking shit. Now, I mean, if it was me, I probably wouldn't let him, I probably wouldn't sit there and let them do that. I'd probably have some shit to say too, but I don't think that's how this thing went down. But either way, I think that was fucking bullshit. Because BMX owes you that camaraderie. And we need to look at ourselves really. And we need to figure this out. Because everyone's different. Everybody enjoys different things. Shit, you got someone who loves to ride flat ledges. I think that shit. Never mind. Look, I'm just not into that. But shit, I love seeing it. I love this diversity, and that's what I was talking about. I like to study this shit. I like to figure out what interests you about riding a flat ledge. And I can imagine it's the creativity side of it. You can link some tricks together, just like we used to do back in the Midwest on a mini ramp. And I think that's probably what the whole thing's about. But hey, man, I'm not gonna fucking If you show up, if you're a flat ledge rider, you show up at a skate park contest. Come on in. Let's do this shit. So that's so two major things. BMX owes you the right to criticize, and BMX owes you that camaraderie. What do y'all think about that? I don't know. These are just things I've been thinking about for a while. Let me know what you think, though. Hit me up, because, man, if we don't have camaraderie, what the fuck do we have? We got some bikes. That's pretty much it. We got bikes. We got kids' bikes at that. You know that the biggest part of BMX is that brotherhood. As a matter of fact, I don't even like riding by myself. There was a long stretch of time in my life where, kind of like a couple years after high school, you know, we've all been through it. People grow out of BMX, people go their own way. But there was a time, probably about 4 or 5 years, where a majority of my riding was done solo at my local park, and I fucking hated every minute of it, man. I hated putting in headphones and riding like that. It just lacked something, you know? I don't know. Maybe you're into it. Like I said, everybody's different. But let me know. Let me know how you feel about this camaraderie. And let me know how you feel about the right to criticize, the right to, I don't want to say the right to talk shit, because sometimes when you talk shit, it's just meaningless bullshit. Well, as a matter of fact, a lot of shit I do, it's just kind of meaningless shit talking. But hopefully people understand that it's all out of love, because we should be able to bullshit with each other. That's what made this thing so fun growing up, you know? That Midwest salt, that saltiness. I loved that, man, because it put a little edge on things. Not everything was just free flowing. You know what I'm saying? There was a bit of like a little anxiety, a little nervousness when you'd show up at a skate park. Because I was like, man, who the fuck is going to be there today? And it was always a show, you know? It was, damn, man, that was big. You never forget those feelings you had growing up in BMX, showing up at the skate park, not knowing who's going to be there. And it could be any park, shit. It could be your home park, your local park. And you never know who the fuck. I remember driving by my park. Anytime I drove by it, I'd be fucking analyzing who was there riding. I was like, oh shit, is that someone from out of town? Damn, let me go get my bike and get up there. Hopefully they don't leave. And we all had the dream that one day you're driving by your local park, and who's going to be there? Motherfucking road fools. That shit never happened though. But anyways, back in when you were growing up riding BMX, you'd show up at the park and you didn't know who was going to be there, and it was always like a mystery, I guess. And that kind of leads me into the subject for today's episode. It's called the local pro, and this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, and I appreciate all the responses. And we're going to talk to some people, and we're going to get some people's perspectives on, who, I guess, for one, who their local pro was. And by the way, let's clear up the term local pro, because I got a lot of responses saying, oh no, we never had pros in our town. No pros ever came from my town. Never made it big. Look, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about basically the number one dude in the town. It was that head motherfucker in town who nobody could touch. That was the local pro, in my opinion. That's what I assumed it was. But like I said, I got some responses, people saying, talking about actual pro riders. And that's not what I was referring to. But yeah, I'm very, very excited and curious to see who your local pro was, and I want to hear some stories on how, I guess, on your perspective on how it affected you as a rider coming up, how it affected the sessions, how it made you feel when you saw this person riding, because I think we all had one. Maybe we don't realize we did. Maybe you were the local pro for a while, and that's something else I want to talk about, and that's something something I want to hear about from you. If you were the local pro, how'd you affect the people around you? How did the sessions go? Were they a little different when you showed up? But anyways, I'm from southeastern Wisconsin. I'm from a town called Delavan. I was actually born in Milwaukee. I lived in the Milwaukee area till I was about 7. And then we moved up out the hood and we moved down to a town called Delavan. And that's where I kind of grew up. So the thing about small towns, you had your own little crew in your town, but then the surrounding towns had their own little crews. So it was a treat when you got to go to one of those surrounding town skate parks, or even go ride some street with whoever, trails, whatever. It was always a treat, because although they were so damn close to you, it's like they were fucking in a different world. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we had one dude who I considered to be the local pro of our area. Now, like I said, each little town probably had their own, but this was the dude. This was the number one dude in the area. And his town was probably about 15 miles from mine, but still, like I said, it was like a conjoined, group of small towns. And this dude was from a town called Burlington, Wisconsin. And Burlington, home of Tony Romo. And they also had a skate park in that town that this dude actually built. From what I remember, he built the park. And the coolest thing about going to that park, aside from seeing this dude ride, was the shit always smelled like chocolate, man. It always smelled like fresh baked cookies. So we'd go up in there, we'd be like just sitting on the deck, just smelling the air, tasting the air. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I think it was called the Chocolate City or Chocolate Town or some shit like that. But damn, man, I just remember sitting up there, just be like, damn, what is that? It's like somebody's cooking up some some fudge. And it was Burlington. They had, because the reason was because they had a Nestle factory like right down the road, I guess. That's why it smelled like chocolate. But this was the dude. His name was Burlington Josh. If you've ever heard of him, if you haven't heard of him, this dude had this he had this undeniable skill on his bike to where he could just blast. You know what I'm saying? Like he would just go really fucking high, and you just kind of wondered like how. Like he would float big 360s over spines, and it's like it got to the point where he was higher than the height of the ramp. So let's say it was a 5-foot ramp, he was going 6-7 feet over it, which I always thought that was kind of dope in BMX, to where if you could get higher than the height of the ramp, I thought that was a pretty big achievement. Let's say you got a 4-foot quarter, you air 5 feet out, and so on. Let's say you got a fucking 12-foot vert ramp, you air 13 feet out of it. And I always thought that was a pretty big feat. I don't know if I've ever done it before. I may have come close, but I always thought that was dope. I've always wanted to go 10 feet, actually. I don't think I've ever aired 10 feet out, but for some reason, I've always wanted to do it, but I just never really I never really pushed the chance to do it. I actually thought about, I think it was Division who had a quarter that was pretty big, and I was like, dude, I think I could probably go 10 feet on that. But I never got around to asking him, like, hey man, can I come fucking air 10 feet on your quarter? I never hit him up, but maybe someday. I don't know. But anyways, this motherfucker could float. He floated. You've seen it before. Some riders they just have this ability to be able to float, man. It's crazy. Yeah, hit me up. Who do you know that can just float on a bike? It's weird. Like, this guy just had this weird ability. Like, he had this, I don't know what it was, man, but I'll never forget it. I'll tell you that. And that was the thing about the local pros. You'll never forget that shit. Because every time they showed up, you had no choice but to just fucking kind of sit back and watch for a little bit because they were about to throw some shit down, and you're not trying. Man, maybe you were trying to get in there, but I was just trying to sit back and take some damn notes. Like, how the fuck did you just do that? But man, I'll never forget that dude, Burlington Josh. I haven't seen him in probably, oh man, since before I joined the Navy. So it's been probably at least 12 years since I've seen that dude. I have no idea if he still rides. I have no clue. I haven't heard anything from him. I was actually pretty good friends with him for a little while there. I remember one time we were going to a skate park. We rode my park, Delavan, and then we hopped in his truck and we went to a different park. And when we got there, we both drank a 40. I think it was a 40 of Old E. Yeah, it was, because we made a joke like, "Lo, let's go get some 40s of Old E." And damn, man, we drank them in the parking lot. Fucking tried to ride a little bit. Then went home, man. And that was dope. That was cool. That was probably the last time I hung out with him. Drinking 40s in the parking lot of the skate park. I think he had a Dodge Ram at the time. But anyways, I don't know if he was ever sponsored. I don't know if I don't think he really, pursued BMX like that. But man, he had just like this ability to be able to just fucking shred, man. And I'll never forget that dude. But anyways, I'm excited. I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to take some calls, and I'm very excited to hear who your local pro was, because we all have a story. You may not think about it like that, but if you really start thinking about the details of your life coming up in BMX, we all have pretty damn interesting stories. The longer you put into it, the more intricate your story may be. I think of dudes, I've already said his name, but like Scott Town, Brett Downs, those guys been riding for fucking damn near 50 years, man. Think about how much your life has changed in 50 years. Think about the person you were before you started riding to who you are now, That shit is wild, man. But anyways, let's get into some calls, and then we'll talk about it. Alright?
Alright, what up? Who's this?
This is Gregory Dixon.
Dixon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man.
Hell yeah. So, the topic is local pro. Did you have one growing up?
I kind of thought about this for a hot minute. Because I started off racing, and I mean, yeah, there was some like local pro dudes at the Rockford track, like Mark Melton was one of them, Mo Tillman, but like on an actual local level from my hometown, there weren't really any. And then just from like riding skate parks back then, it was like Mark Murphy, Jimmy Walker, Jeff Harrington, Eric.
So you had a few then. So where did you grow up?
Northeastern Illinois. So like right in the northeast corner.
Okay.
But I mean, you basically had to travel half hour to an hour to go where any pros rode. Like in my town, I mean, like there were some badass dudes, but none of them ever really got to the pro status of bike riding.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to a point where I was thinking about it, and I got a lot of response from people saying like, no, we never had pros in our town, whatever. But my understanding that the local pro was just the head dude in town. You know what I'm saying? I never thought of them as like a pro dude. So my local pro was Burlington Josh, for instance. You know what I'm saying? He was just the dude. So
yeah, but that's a lot different, just because Burlington Josh made pros look like bitches.
Yeah.
Like that dude is fucking gnarly.
Yeah, but I mean, who was that dude like in your town? You know what I'm saying?
There were a couple dudes. There's this guy Chris Howenstein, who he moved out to California, and like yeah, he was a bad motherfucker. This other dude, Jeff Schowell, was a ripper. Like those two dudes are pretty much like everybody. Like my town, like Antioch, Illinois, back when I was younger, had a huge riding scene. like on a Friday after school, you would go behind this one store in town, had a huge parking lot, and there'd be like 50 to 75 kids on bikes, like just kicking it, playing foot down, like some would be like drinking or smoking weed and just like being delinquents. Like there was a shit ton of people that rode. So like those two dudes were like the baddest motherfuckers we had though.
Do you remember any like, I don't know, I guess, did you guys have the skate park at that point?
No, there was like little spots around town. Like I was listening, like it was like Pete Augustin's podcast that he did with Shad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like where he was talking about like how the whole city was like a spot. Like that's how our whole town was. Like you would just like jam from spot to spot. Like, oh, we're gonna go hit this fly out over here, then we're gonna zip over here to their some lip carved out of some big piece of shit, and we'll ride that for a while. Then we'll go over here and so
that's cool, man. Because that's like it just reminds me of being a kid and not having any fucking cares, you know, just all day you're just doing whatever.
Yeah, and dude, like to put it in like perspective for people now, it's like playing like the game Skate or Skate 2 or 3, like where the whole city is a spot. Like, you're sessioning as you go and you're just hauling ass everywhere. It was kind of cool.
Yeah. Did those two dudes affect you at all growing up? Like in your perspective, did they, you know, affect your style, I guess?
No, unfortunately, I don't think so. Just because, like, I think I was too young to get it then. That kind of came in when I was probably a few years later. I was riding with Nate Schaefer and Mark Hildebrand a lot. I mean, like, they were both sponsored race dudes. Mark had trails in his backyard that Nate would build at. And, like, those dudes kind of, because I was just like, oh, yeah, dude, like, let's do tricks. And was all gung-ho on that. And they kind of just, like, put me in check. And were like, look, motherfucker, like, how
we got priorities, bro.
Like, how about you learn, like, all control before you start doing that bullshit?
Yeah.
And it was good because, I mean, I'll call kids on that nowadays. So it's like, it's kind of come around. Like, these dudes helped do it for me. And now it's like, yo, kid, you need to fucking chill.
Yeah. Yeah. With that said, I'll ask you kind of like a side question and I can let you go. But how do you feel about criticism in BMX? Do you think that riders should be allowed to, I guess, talk shit in a sense and to be able to, you know, if they feel like something is not going a certain way or whatever, you know, whatever, you think people should be allowed to like have an open, like kind of, I don't want to say shit talking, but like an open, like real discussion. We're saying like, hey man, this shit is kind of whack.
Oh, for fucking sure. But dude, like the kids nowadays, like not only do they not want to hear it, they don't want to do their homework. They don't want to know like why a tabletop is way cooler than a fucking triple tail whip. Like they don't give a fuck. So like, but I mean, I'm one of those people where like, let's say I'm at Four Seasons or something, and there's some kid who is like has a lot of potential. Like he's ripping, he's doing tricks, but it just looks gross. Like I'm one of the people where like I'll give you shit. If I give you shit, it means one of two things. It means either I like you and I want to see you do better, or I really think you're a piece of shit. And if I think you're a piece of shit, I give you shit and I'm just like a dick about it. If I like you, then it's like, yo, dude, you're fucking blowing it. This is why. Try doing this. Do it better.
Which I assume that happens more often than just talking shit because you're not, you know, not into whatever they're doing.
Yeah,
I think like, you probably mean well for the most part.
There's a few people who like if I talk shit to them, I mean it.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like I would say like probably like 98% of the time, like it's just me, almost like a backhanded compliment. I'll own up to it, but like, hey, you're good. Yeah, you're good, but you would be a lot better, and people would actually notice you if you did blah blah blah. And kids are just like, oh no, I gotta learn into the foam. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I can tail it. Can you do a tabletop? No. Get the fuck out. Did you pedal on the bowl? Get the fuck out. I mean, like, yeah, everybody, it's freestyle, but kind of like in the Big Lebowski, and there's fucking rules. Like, if you're gonna do a tabletop, tuck your fucking knee. Like, don't be bow-legged as fuck. Don't stand on your fucking crank arms. Quit putting grip tape on them. Don't do tail ups and land up. Land on your fucking pedals where you're supposed to. Like, and all these kids that do that shit, like, they're like, oh yeah, like, I'm gonna get sponsored. No, you're not, because people notice you doing whack shit. If you do whack shit, nobody's gonna care about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, BMX is in such a different place than it was when I was growing up. When I was growing up, like, it wasn't cool. It was not the cool thing to do. Now
that's important too. Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
I've seen dudes get laid from riding bikes. Fucking more power to you.
Yeah. I think you're kind of right. I think BMX is more is closer to like the norms of society now than it has been for a long time. I mean, as far as like, you know, trends and styles are concerned, I think it's for the most part relatable to like the society we live in, which is important because, like you said, when we were younger, when you came up, you know, riding, it wasn't cool, so it didn't, you know, adapt well to everybody else.
Yeah, like, and honestly, I would say it's to the credit of skateboarding because, like, the Tony Hawk video game comes out, and it's basically like a skate park game with a skateboard. Well, fucking BMXers are like, yo, that's tight. Like, we do the same shit. So that, like, they kind of get lumped in with skateboarding on that. People, like, the general public's like, oh, hey, this is actually really cool. BMX gets lumped in with it. Hey, they do the same shit except on a bike. That's cool. Where before it was just like, get the fuck off my property, you delinquent piece of shit.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, dude, thanks for your time, man. I'll talk to you.
Hell yeah. Yeah, dude.
All right, later.
Late.
Damn, so already a different perspective. It was kind of surprising. I didn't think about the fact that, and I guess we all grew up in the towns are different sizes, you know, which I guess could play an important part on your perspective of a local pro. So like Dixon said, he named a bunch of pro dudes around the area, but, you know, they were kind of already big at that time. And then he had mentioned a couple dudes from his town, but didn't quite seem on the level of impression that I had growing up with my local pro. I don't know, it's kind of interesting. Something I didn't really think about was, you know, if somebody grew up in a city, a big city somewhere, that had to have been quite different as well. So I don't know, let's hear from someone else, see what they got to say.
Who's this?
Yo, what's up, man? It's Michael.
Michael, what you up to?
Chilling, man. How you doing?
Oh shit, I'm doing good, man. Thank you. Hey, before we talk about your local pro, I just want to say congrats, all your success. You know, all of us from back home, we are psyched for you. And you know what? Not even congrats on your success, just congrats on living life, man.
Hey,
you know,
thanks, bro. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, it's like, you know, in today's day and age, it's a little more difficult to just like simply live your life. So, man,
yeah,
I love what you're doing. I love your positivity. Actually, you posted something the other day. It was something like be yourself unapologetically or something like that.
Yes, dude. I'm all about that.
That was big, man, because I think people really need to. I read that a lot. I read it like over and over. Like, damn, that's pretty deep, because a lot of people are kind of, it's like they're afraid to be themselves these days, man.
Yeah, no, and I agree, man. And the wild thing about that is, you know, social media is a great thing, but I think that sometimes it can get the best of us. And for a lot of people, you know, everybody's behind a keyboard. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of negativity and all that stuff. And you can't really, like, filter that coming in from the outside world, but you can, you know, have that filter personally for yourself. And what, like, we get what we allow sometimes, you know? Mm-hmm. So being yourself unapologetically, man, like, I believe in that so much. And it's just that frequency to be on, like, a raised level, you know what I mean? And I just crack up because, dude, there's so many. I think of it like Tetris, to kind of sum it up for my approach to it, is like you're playing Tetris, and you're filling in those lines, and as soon as that line happens for us to fit in like society, whatever it is, we end up disappearing. Like that line goes out versus being unique and being yourself, and it's like you're supposed to stand out, man. I think it's supposed to be like that,
Yeah,
so,
that's a good point. That's a good way to put it. So, did you have a local pro growing up? First off, where are you from?
Dude, yeah, Racine, Wisconsin, man. And plenty. It's crazy. I grew up at Racine Skate Park. They built that back in '98, and it was so wild, bro, because we're like, the Midwest scene in general was so amazing, and everybody from Illinois, everybody from Minnesota, Indiana, Ohio, like it was like this big melting pot, same with Michigan as well. And my first impression of BMX was my brother and I just, ripping down the driveway or going off like cinder block and plywood ramps or whatever it was. When they built that skate park, dude, like we had no idea. We're like, all right, cool. And we show up, we had no idea the level of like expertise that existed in the area, man. We had no idea.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, so I don't know. It was just one of those things, man. There were plenty of dudes that came through. I think more consistent people that lived in the area. Brian Val, 100% OG, like to the wheels fall off, man. That's my dude. And it was such a cool opportunity just to experience that as such a young kid. And I mean, Brian's huge, like 6'5", 6'6", so I'm like,
yeah, he's actually big.
Little tyke, yeah, I'm a little tyke, and I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. You do hang fives, man. Wait, is that what it's called, right? And it's like just this giant towering over me. Like, oh yeah, man, he's like the nicest dude ever. And it's just insane to see, like, over the years, we celebrated 20 years at that skate park, and over those 20 years, there's been so many people to come through. And I mean, you've ridden there plenty, so it's like such a cool scene, man.
Yeah, we used to go there in the mornings, which was kind of weird because I never really rode in the mornings, but one of my friends was like, hey, we got to go in the morning because this place gets really busy. So we used to go like Saturday mornings, like literally when the sun was coming up and the place was dead. It was kind of a weird vibe, but I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the seagulls, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
but aside from Brian Vowell, I actually was thinking about, because I got a bunch of responses in regards to that thing I put on Instagram about local pros, and in my mind, the local pro is just the number one dude in the town. You know what I'm saying? It had nothing to do with them being pro by any means. It was just they were the number one. So did you have anyone like that?
That's a good question too. Off the top of my head, I mean, when I was younger, it was for me, it was my brother, because he was so, like, I was around him all the time. And he was always like, I'm gonna do this transfer. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. You can't make that gap. And he was like, I'm gonna do it. And so, but that was huge. And so I want to clarify this too. There was such a crazy scene happening in Milwaukee at Four Seasons Skate Park, and Racine had its own thing going on, and it was cool because you would see a lot of people bounce back and forth. If it was raining, we go to Four Seasons. If it's sunny out, most people are down at Racine, and it's only like 30 miles apart, right? So it's not that far of a drive. And so on that scale, dude, I mean, if I combine those two, honestly, it's like Dominic Travato, Little John, Jeff Klubowitz, Rich Holmes, Jamie Spritzer, Brian Vaughn, Kevin Porter, Dave Fryman. It's like there's all like a slew of names that just, it's like this big melting pot of people that would frequent both of these skate parks. Andy Kent, Sean Arata, Brandon Harris, and that to me was so cool because in the moment I didn't realize the weight of it, but looking back on it, man, there was so much diversity in riding and big stuff happened, and then we're just like, dude, that's so crazy. Guys like Scott Draper, Matt Hall, you know what I mean? So it was just a really cool scene, man. So I don't know if I can pinpoint and say one person, because say Matt Hall had his own thing going, Dominic Travato had his own thing going, Little John had his own thing going. So it'd be tough for me to say one person. But again, on the jump, like in the beginning, it was just my brother, just because I looked up to him so much and I was always trying to keep up with him. So for me, it was my brother, but the slew of all those names, man, is like, that's a tough choice.
At what point did you kind of surpass your brother when it came to skill?
Yeah,
do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I think it was around high school, man. he started to slow up a little bit on riding. And I think at that point, man, I'm 2 years younger than he is. So, he's like interested in his car and like, he's got a job and all that stuff. And I had a job too, but I was like part-time. So, in high school and all that stuff, but you got a lot of stuff going on. You're trying to, spread the time between friends and family and, your hobbies and all that stuff. But, about high school, my sophomore year, his senior year, I was going like to town, bro. Like I'd come home from practice, go to work for a couple hours, and then go straight from work to the skate park, stay there until the lights shut off, and then just watch, rinse, repeat. So
you caught that bug. Maybe your brother didn't catch it like you did, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, he was in it for like as long as he still rides, but something inside me thought like, dude, I have to ride every single day. I have to.
That's cool.
If it's raining, I'll ride in the garage. I'll do something.
Are you competitive?
No. I mean, if I was, I would probably just say just with myself, man. Like I'm never. I think it's like a team building thing. There was a lot of guys. One dude, Rich Holmes. He was always like, "Hey, man, if I do this, then you do that." I was like, "All right, cool," and we compete with each other like that, but not against each other. Guys like JJ Flaherty, another dude. Him and I spent a lot of time on the road. And he'll always be like, "Oh, what do you think of doing?" I was like, "All right, I'm gonna try this. If you want to try that," he's like, "All right."
Yeah, I'm glad you brought Koji too, but I'm glad you brought JJ up because I do think he's very competitive. And what I was getting at was competitiveness in BMX. I personally think there's a place for it in BMX. I'd love it. I love competition in general. I love NBA. It's a big passion of mine. So I love competition. And if someone's gonna pursue BMX in that in that light, I'm all for it. So I just wanted to get your take on competitiveness in BMX. Yeah,
no, I think that's pretty dope, man. And I know we got the same NBA team. And it's just one of those things like, imagine, the Milwaukee Bucks are looking for a spark. And I forget the exact year, but Ray Allen comes onto the Bucks and just re-energizes that whole team between him, Sam Cassell, and the other guys. Like, that was such a competitive team. And it literally reinvigorated the whole city, man.
Right.
So when I see that on the BMX side, people like JJ, I remember the first time we met was at one of the racing skate park contests, and that was the first time I've ever seen a flare in person, and it was JJ. And that was one of the first ones he ever landed. So it was on the south side 9-foot, and I was like, I heard rumor that he was going to try it, and I was like, dude, that'd be so sick to see that in person. And again, we're competing against each other in the same class, but I was like, dude, if he lands that, he better win. Like, that's boss, So over the years, it's been cool because, like, I think, like, I agree with you. I think there's a place for it, and it pushes not only ourselves but also pushes the sport. If lifestyle, however you want to label it, Jay Marion, Dave Mura, it's like two of the most competitive dudes ever, and one of the dopest, rivalries, if you will.
Well, hey, last question. Are you a local pro now?
I guess I don't know how, like, for me, like, I ride Claremont Skate Park a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. What's your local park? Do you see kids who maybe maybe see a little bit of yourself when you arrive, and as opposed to when you were a kid, when someone would arrive, like Brian Vowell, for instance? Do you see that reaction at all?
Yeah, and that, honestly, bro, it's such an honor just because, like, I remember being on the other side of it. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you get that at the skate park too, because, like, you show up, you have a different style, you ride in a very unique way, and, like, you're very approachable. And so kids naturally are like, dude, where'd you get, this gear? Like, that colorway's crazy. Like, what? And it's like, that to me, as being a kid on the other side of it now, showing it to the skate park, like, dude, there's so many questions, and I love it. There's so many, like, well, how do you do this? And teach me how to turn down. Like, those things are it's such a cool way to give back. And so being at Claremont is like that. And it's just a huge privilege and honor, man, because, like, honestly, I know I can't ride forever, and I don't want to just, like, hoard all the information to myself and be like, oh, well, I'm only, I'm trying to be that eco-centric dude. Like, that's not me. So I'm like an open book, bro. These kids are like, well, how do you bar snow? I'm like, all right. And then we'll just, have, like, an impromptu lesson kind of thing, So, the honor, man. But I feel like you get that pretty often, too, and, like, you and your son are riding son now. So is he at that point where he's, like, absorbing everything and super stoked, or, like, what's that about?
I think it's like it's tough. He's he's your average 12-year-old kid, so his I guess his attention span for things just kind of comes and goes. But when he rides, he loves it. But when he's not riding, he's not thinking about it. If that makes sense, he's not into it. But I will say that I didn't get into BMX till I was probably maybe 13 or 14. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that's one thing. I'm just not pushing anything on him. You know what I mean? I want him to do something, but I don't really care what it is. It could be art. It could be basketball. It could be BMX. It doesn't matter to me really. So if he wants to come ride, then he'll come ride. But that's kind of how it is.
No, that's rad, man. And for you, so being 13, like, was there a local pro for yourself? Was it like, what was the spark for you?
Yeah. My dude was Burlington Josh, if you remember that guy.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the dude, and that's what I was saying about because he never went pro. I don't even know if he's sponsored, but he was the dude. He was the number one dude in the area, so he was definitely my local pro. I'll never forget seeing him ride when I was young. But yep, that was the dude.
Yeah, man. Has he you still talk to him at all, or?
Man, I think it's probably been about 12 years since I even heard from him, so I have no idea what he's doing, man.
Yeah, it'd be cool to try to reach out to.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, man, I really appreciate talking to you, and best of luck, and I'll talk to you soon, all right?
Dude, thanks so much, man. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, man. Later.
All right, later.
Damn. Well, man, I'm starting to see a trend already. Damn, maybe I was wrong, man. I guess I never really... Man, I don't know. I kind of just always thought all BMX riders kind of had the same background for the most part. It's like we all kind of came up the same way. But now I'm starting to realize that, depending on where you're from, your experience growing up in BMX is changed based on that. It's just different. So like Dixon and now Michael, he's saying, look, I had Brian Vowell. I had this, major pro at the time who was around the area, but again, he couldn't really pinpoint like that one dude in his town. But again, he grew up in Racine, which is, way, way bigger than where I grew up. But yeah, that's just kind of crazy. Maybe I'm just being shallow-minded again, just not thinking of the fact that people didn't grow up the way I did. So, damn, it's pretty crazy. Starting to see a trend already. Let's take another one. See who we got next.
All right, who's this?
This is Travis Mortz.
Travis, how you doing, man? The camera dude.
Yes, I'm the camera dude, definitely. I'm doing good. How about you?
Good, man, good. So, when did we meet? I know we met face to face once.
We met in 2014 at Texas Toast in Austin.
Yep, that's right. We hung up for what, like 10 minutes, and that was it.
Yeah, you were the dude out there with all the Haro gear on, and I'm like, this dude fucking loves BMX.
We all go through phases in life.
I love it. I was taking pictures, and I was definitely like trying to talk to you and see what the hell you were doing.
That's awesome.
You had all the gear.
That's awesome. So, did you have a local pro growing up?
Yeah, I'd say I'd had 1.5 local pros growing up.
Okay, where are you from?
I'm from Northern California, like Sacramento area.
Okay.
And so it's kind of funny, like, you think California, you think all these BMX pros, but I feel like where we're situated in the world of BMX, it's extremely unfortunate because we're not in SoCal. I'm probably like a 6 or 7 hour drive away from, the S&M warehouse, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so the California kids in SoCal get a lot of attention because they're all right there at the skate parks with the pros, knowing everybody. And so they sponsor a lot of kids down there. And then when we have a kid up here, just 7-8 hours away that's really shredding, it's like they already have enough kids in California that are sponsored. And so it's like, yeah, but maybe if we got a cool kid in Northern California and we got a cool kid in Portland, Oregon, let's get that Portland, Oregon kid so we could like wrap up the Northwest because all these NorCal kids are fucking juiced on SoCal. It's right there. Like
wow, that's a good point, man. I never,
it's a very
I never
weird
thought about
thing. That. Yeah, but it's like and so growing up, we had the Solid Bikes warehouse in Sacramento.
Yeah.
But if you know anything about Solid Bikes, it's like their main goal was making bikes and making money, and they didn't pay their riders, and so their riders were like they were all pros, but they were really just like getting free parts from the homies. And since they weren't paying them, a lot of those riders were like they were pros, but they weren't like in the mix of the pro scene because nobody was going to contests. Nobody was like these weren't solid riders were not those kinds of pros. So they were just like those dudes were local pros because they got a free bike, but that's all they got. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So we had a couple. So to answer your question, yes, we had a couple pros, but NorCal's always been super thin with that kind of stuff. Like since day one.
That's a good perspective. Something I hadn't thought about because I'm from the Midwest, so it was different for me too. But California still had their thing, but it was a much bigger move to go down to California, Southern California. That's pretty crazy that you were in Cali, in your area, but you weren't looked at in the same way that Southern California dudes were.
Right. And more importantly, like I was a photographer, dude. And like I kind of took pride in that, and I'm like, this is gonna be my way into BMX, so I don't need to fucking kill myself trying tail whips, So
wow.
I use photography as like I'm gonna be a part of BMX in this way. So I'm watching all the young locals, and like these poor kids, they're out there thinking, if I learn tail whips and bar spins, I'm gonna get sponsored, and they don't really understand the politics of it all. They don't really understand that the only reason kids get sponsored is to sell parts. And if they already got California wrapped up in a box, like they're not going to come up to NorCal to try to find the kid that's doing something different. Like surely there's someone in SoCal that's doing all the same tail whip gaps that this NorCal kid's doing,
Yeah.
It's like you need to have an extremely unique rider. So our local pro was Curtis Elwell.
Oh, okay.
And and then we also had another local pro in quotes. His name was Bobby Roberts. And man, I got every issue of Props magazine or Props video magazine. I've seen every Road Fools. I've seen every fucking commercial. Bobby Roberts is not in any of them. He was like a young kid that like I think had a connection with the guy that worked at Snafu. So he would get Snafu parts, and like to us, he was pro because he would get Snafu parts for free. But like in hindsight, I'm like, that dude wasn't pro. He was just he ripped, and he ripped in a time where it was the early 2000s, and it there wasn't as much exposure as there is now. But he wasn't pro like Curtis Elwell. Curtis Elwell had a ride BMX video part. Curtis Elwell was in the volume video. So Curtis Elwell, that's why I said 1.5. Our real local pro was Curtis Elwell.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that other dude because when I put the question out there, and let me mention that my local pro was never pro at all. He was just the number one dude in my eyes, in that area. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned that other dude because, in my opinion, I don't think the local pro had to be pro at all.
He doesn't. And that's like, yeah, I got more influence from Bobby Roberts than I did Curtis because Curtis wasn't ever around.
Right.
But Bobby Roberts was at the skate park with me, and he was doing 360 tail whips. I'm like, this dude's fucking pro. Like
yeah.
And it gives you something to strive for. Like that's the best part about a local pro. That local pro lets all those young thirsty kids, not me necessarily, but it lets those young thirsty kids know that there is a way. And it's like, it's so weird about being pro. It's like, it's almost like the kids just want the free parts. It's like you never hear kids, and I love that. It's a good thing, because you never hear kids talking about like, man, I really want to be sponsored so I can fucking not have to work. You know, like,
yeah.
they're always like, oh, I want free parts. Like, if you're so sick, like, pros could just get free wheels whenever they want. Like, you know what I mean?
How about I want to be sponsored because I love what this company's doing and I want to see them grow and succeed. Like, I don't hear that a whole lot either.
Never. It's like they never have a company they want to be sponsored by. These kids are like college football players. Like, yo, just sign me up anywhere. Like, you know, they're not like, yeah, I love Shadow. I'm going to represent the brand until they represent me, and I'm pining for Shadow. No, like,
yeah,
these kids are they're just killing themselves over a spine, trying to do crazy ass shit, thinking that somebody somewhere will see their Instagram video and be like, I want to give this kid free parts.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, I think there are a lot of kids and even probably some slightly older people who want to ride for a certain company. I think of like Colt, for instance. I'm sure there's a shitload of people who are like, hey, I want to ride for Colt because I love their image, I love what they're doing. So to be fair, I think we need to mention that at least, you know.
Absolutely, that is true. But it's like a lot of times, I don't know. There's like I always say there's two kinds of kids in BMX. There's a kid that loves BMX like wholeheartedly. He might even be like the chubby kid at the park that's always got a BMX shirt on, and he saw the latest video, and he fucking loves the culture. And then there's the kid that loves BMX because he wants people to think he's really good at it, and he's probably not even watching those videos, and he doesn't even he's just in it to win it. And it seems a lot of times that first kid has a company he loves. That first kid has like all S&M parts, you know, and he's like kind of good. That second kid has like the goofy colored parts, and he's just worried about doing front flips, you know, like, and it's like, and then there's a kid that's both, and those kids that are both, those are the kids that are really fucking good at BMX. Like, those are the kids that are doing tire slides and tail whips. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, no, we know what's cool. We do both.
Yeah. That's a good point, too, and I guess I'll have one last question for you. Do you remember when growing up, I assume we grew up in basically the same era of BMX. Do you remember being a kid and just putting all different types of stickers on your bike, let's say you're wearing a fucking S&M shirt and, you know, like a Primo hat and just, like, mixing everything up and, like, you're riding a standard frame, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you remember times like that?
I definitely do remember times like that. And it's so funny to me because it's like, at that age, really what that is like, that's when you love BMX the most. And you just like, big. You just want to represent it. Like, I had a jam a couple months ago, and I got stickers from all these companies. They gave me like sticker packs. And I'm like, I'm not going to give a kid 25 Sabrosa stickers. Like, that makes no fucking sense to me.
Right.
Because now he's going to have a sticker pack of 25 Sabrosa stickers. So I put all those stickers into a box. Literally, I probably had 1,000 stickers in that box. Every sticker pack, every stack of Colt stickers, I had all of it into a shoebox. And I'm like, take whatever you want. And so I was kind of promoting exactly what you're saying. Like, represent BMX. Like, don't represent, like, because, and I'm that guy. Like, you know, I might not put a Colt sticker on my car just because I'm an old school dude and I remember before Colt was a brand and I kind of like Odyssey, you know what I mean? All that shit. But, like, I want these kids to just love BMX. I'm like, yo, here's a GT sticker. Rock that shit. Like, GT is like,
GT, like, what the hell is GT?
Exactly. And it's like, I just threw it all in there because I wanted kids, and that's exactly what happened. You start to see the 16-year-old kids with just every sticker on their bike because they just want people. It's like they want to be part of the club, you know? And like, that's kind of like when I threw that jam, I got so many products from companies, and I told my buddies, like, we're not doing product toss. We're not doing, you know, this kid's shredding, give him the most shit. Like, that kid's always shredding because he's been around a while. Let's go find the kids that, like, I found the kids that weren't shredding at all, and I'm like, dude, here's new pedals. And they're like, what? They're like, why?
Now go shred.
Yeah, why am I getting new pedals? Like, I suck, you know, and I'm like, you're a BMXer, dude. Like, welcome. Yeah. Here's a T-shirt. Here's a Colt T-shirt. And
so dude, yeah, just showing up is enough.
Yeah, you are here, bro. You're here. You're one of us. Like, and you know, you're kind of shy right now because there's fucking rippers everywhere. Like, enjoy the show, and here's a Colt T-shirt, and go rep that shit at school tomorrow. You know?
Hell yeah.
And like, dude, so that's the essence. That's exactly what you said. Like, having all the different companies, it's like that is your peak, dude. That's when you love BMX the most. That's when you're in like the honeymoon phase, where it's like anything's awesome. You don't hate any riders, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have any of that, like, I don't know, that salt that we end up getting over the years. We all have it.
Yeah, hating riders, man. I that's funny you say that. I never had that thought in my mind growing up. You know what I'm saying?
Never. But now it's like, now I might be like, dude, who could you go the rest of your life without watching? You're gonna sit here. You're gonna have a hard time answering because there's gonna be a couple names. You know what I mean? Like,
oh shit. Well, dude, Travis, I appreciate it, man. It's good to hear from you. I love what you're doing, man.
Thank you. I love what you're doing, dude. I love that.
Oh, dude,
I love that you're staying in. This is exactly what I was talking about. You're in the mix. This is your way of doing it. You're on the Chris Doyle fucking podcast.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much, man.
Hell yeah.
Take it easy, bro.
Yeah, you have a good one, buddy.
All right, later.
All right, later.
Well, damn. Yeah, I think that one was a little more along the lines of what I was talking about. Now, one thing I forgot to ask him is how big his town was, but he said he lived around Sacramento. So, I mean, that's a big city, but I don't know if he meant he lived in the city. But either way, I think that was a little more along the lines of what I was talking about. That's dope. I'm glad he was able to elaborate and reflect on that one dude who wasn't exactly a pro. I love that. I love that he was still that dude. You know, regardless of what he was as far as like, you know, position and BMX, whatever, he was just that dude. And one thing I love that Travis said was how he was giving products to the kids who were kind of sitting back. You know, a lot of us may have been that kid growing up, and maybe we were just a little too intimidated to get in there. And I think that's pretty dope that he noticed them and, you know, singled them out a little bit and hooked them up with a little product, because that kid's gonna remember that. And that's something I've been thinking about for a while. A kind of a theory of mine is like, if you can change one kid's life in the span of your life, I think you've done your part. And, you know, I coached basketball for a few years, and that was one of my main goals, to try to like positively affect some kid's life. You know, winning was sweet, but if I could get that kid to change his outlook, you know, be a little more positive in like looking at his future, then I think I've done my job. And Travis, I think you did that, man. So keep that up. You may not realize it, but you were you affected that kid's life, man. So good on you, bruh. Yeah. So I think maybe we got time for one more, and then we'll wrap this thing up. It's not what I anticipated, but that's good, because I learned some things for sure. Everyone has a different background, and I don't know. I'm not sure if it affects us differently in the long run, but it might. What do y'all think? Let me know. Let's take one more, and then we're gonna wrap this thing up.
All right. What's up? Who's this?
Hey, it's Colin McKay here.
Admiral McKay, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. Taking it easy
today.
Call
you Admiral?
There's only a couple of people that might slip it in there. It's not very often used. But
so where are you from?
You're probably one of them. You're probably one of the people that says it.
Really?
Definitely.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Grot Bags was the originator who started saying that a little bit over the mic. Maybe at some Metro Jam here and there or something.
Yeah, that's cool. Where are you from, Colin?
Brisbane, Australia is home for me. Yeah, still at home.
That's a coastal city, right?
Fairly coastal. It's not far from the beach. It's technically a river town, but the rivers lead to the beaches. So
that's good.
Yeah, I still call it home after all these years. And, you know, I could go back anytime. You know, who knows? I just keep riding the wave here, and I'm happy with things.
The word home is a weird thing as you get older. You know, you've spent so much time in one place, and then you kind of always have that little spot, you know, for your hometown.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally understand that. Right now we're having a good time here, but yeah,
cool.
I never let go of where I'm really from.
Yeah, dude, it's good to hear your voice, man. So, did you have any local pros growing up?
Yeah, for sure. You know, there was people to look up to. For me, I saw some BMX Plus mags at the school library, and some kids raced, and I wasn't really into racing. I never actually signed up to race. I was more into doing tricks and stuff, and I would flick to those pages in BMX Plus that had the tricks and stuff, and I just knew of a park across town that was about an hour and a half away, and I made the mission to head out there, and I had no idea there was a scene whatsoever for BMX, and just so happened to meet like a local pro that I didn't even know about until I came in contact with him, and it was Clint Miller.
No shit. So was he like fairly established at that time, or was he still like the local dude?
We're talking early '90s, but at the time he had connections with American companies, probably just from writing letters out of mags and such. He had the stickers, and he had the up-to-date bike, and he was winning the pro comps. I didn't even know there was competition series. There was probably only one or two comps a year, but I was just a kid sort of learning about this whole BMX industry, and it turns out the guy was Clint Miller that was kind of running the show, putting on events and winning them. And as I got older, we would head on trips down south to Sydney, and he would be basically the captain of our crew, and he would just take on the Sydney riders down south and the Melbourne riders, or wherever you're from in Australia. But Clint would usually run the show and the event at he would be holding the trophy at the end of the day and doing something crazy on a bike that we still have fond memories of today. So he was definitely the local pro, and just someone to look up to, just because he was so in the scene. Like, he had connections in the American scene too. He was getting frames made from Standard, and just had connections, and he was a star for sure. He had any video that came out, he would have it in the mail, and we would go to his house and grab some pizzas and watch the latest bike videos and stuff. So he was the one to look up to, and there was a lot of good pros, but he was the one that was shining and making moves.
So when you first met him, though, you didn't know he was established, he was sponsored, all that stuff. You just saw a dude at a skate park, right?
Yeah, I actually saw him on a train. You had to carry, like, bikes had to be on the first carriage on trains. I don't know if that's like that anywhere else in the world, but that's how it was in Australia. He happened to get on a stop, and the doors opened up, and this guy got on the train, and he had shin pads and a gyro, and like, I was like, holy shit, this dude rides. Like, he knows, there's no stuffing around. He was a bike rider. And he gave me a flyer. He gave me a flyer that day for an event he was running, like, the weekend after that one. So went to the park with him. It was Bean Lee Park. It's still going today, but I went to the park with him, and he just dropped in and just casually just laid down a whole bunch of moves, like just having a ride. And I was like, holy shit, yeah, he's legit for sure. And then so he was really nice to me as a sort of 14-year-old kid, 13, 14. Didn't act like the superstar pro,
cool.
that he really was. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. What I was getting at was, there's almost an it factor in BMX a little bit. It's like, I mean, I'm sure you see this in the position you're in right now, but you see a kid or you see a dude, and it's like they just have it. You know what I mean? I'm very critical, and I criticize a lot, but I mean well, and I'll never. How can I put this? Let's take Larry Edgar, for instance. I've talked shit on him for a long time, but it's all because I respect what he does. But I will add that when I was in Texas, we rode with him, and he just had it. You know what I'm saying? It's like you could tell he was where he was because he could do what he does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
Like an it factor. So I imagine Clint probably had that growing up.
Yeah.
He saw like
huge influence. Yeah, like when you see people, that I guess you can tell yourself, like, shit, I can probably do a few moves. Like when you see it in the flesh and it's not on a video, it gives you inspiration for sure. And
Yeah, that's a good point, because you would see stuff on, Instagram videos, whatever, but then when you go ride with that person, it's like you kind of understand. You're like, oh, okay, that's why.
Yeah, man, huge inspiration and motivation, absolutely, to a lot of riders, and yeah, you do see those people, man, like myself, with different shoes on these days, traveling with the superstar pros today, and I see kids' reactions, and I can see it from a different angle. When you travel with people like Dennis Enison and you see him riding around, you're on the deck, but you hear the vibes and the like kids just spinning out on the deck or wherever you are. It's so sick to see these days.
That's cool, because that says that the local pro feeling and that vibe is still strong today. You know what I mean? Because when I was growing up, I had a local pro, and there was always a vibe when he showed up, and I'm glad to hear that's still strong.
Shit, yeah, sure.
That's cool, man. Well, anyways, dude, I appreciate talking to you, man. It's good to hear from you, and I hope we catch up soon.
Yeah, mate, always good to hear from you.
All right, man. Well, take care, all right?
All right, thanks, Casey.
All right, later.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, man. The motherfucking Admiral. Damn, man, the Admiral came through. I think they called him the Admiral because he was the first Australian dude to really, I guess besides Clint Miller, but I always thought his name was Clint Millar. That's that shallow American mind at work. I always thought it was Clint Millar, but nonetheless, I think his name was Admiral because he was the one to do it big, the first one out of Australia. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just what I thought. But anyways, man, I appreciate y'all being here. This was episode 1, Yeah Dude Sick podcast. I had fun, and I learned a lot. And, you may not agree with everything I'm saying, but that's good. Hit me up. Hit me up if you disagree with something, or if you felt like maybe I should have elaborated on something a little more. But all we got are opinions. We each get one. I'm going to share mine. So I appreciate y'all being here. Stay tuned for the next episode. It's going to be completely different than this one. Never expect this thing to be the same. I already got plans for the next few episodes, and they are nothing like what you just heard. So thank y'all. It's all love. I'm out.